while Europe is slowly trying to refurbish its long-distance rail network to combat environmental impacts of flying. In India, trains are the single most important mean of transportation. It might sound like a cliché, but the railway is quite literally the bloodstream of the country. Just look at this map. You see the blue arteries connecting every major city, with the green blood vessels connecting pretty much everything else. Of course, there are other travel options, but none is comparable with trains, whether that be in price, timetable, or comfort of the journey. The overall length of the network is 67,415 kilometers, which might only be fifth in the world, but the first four countries, the US, China, Russia, and Canada, are at least triple in size, so India easily beats them in railway density. Trains are not just a means of transport, they are very much part of the Indian culture and identity. Every society is divided into civil and military populations, with each having different institutions like housing or hospitals. But in India, you have different institutions for civilians, the military, and people working for the railways. After all, it directly employs 1.2 million people, but there are also millions others whose livelihood is vitally dependent on this glorious institution. Migrant workers that need to cross the country to earn a living, or those who are selling tea on the platform. The railways are an essential infrastructure, crucial for individual freedom and socio-economical development. But it was not always like this. The first railways in India were constructed almost 2 centuries ago during the British Raj to exercise greater power over transportation of goods and to expand their dominance on the subcontinent. Later, with the extension of passenger services, the colonial power also intended to shape people of India into more desirable royal subjects with this new technological invention. But people of India were strong, and to great despair of the British, used the railway in their own distinctive way. And they didn't really fancy the railways. After all, the Britons used it mainly to dismantle local industries, as goods imported from the British Isles could be easily transported across the country. The railway also enabled commercialization of Indian agriculture. This meant that land which was previously used for growing food crops was used to grow cash crops, like tea, sugar, coffee, and opium. These nutrient-hungry plants degrade fertility of the soil, which in combination with having less space to grow actual food led to cataclysmic famines. This reality divided Indian intellectuals of that time. One ideological branch saw the railway as a misused tool that could serve India and its people if they, not the British, got to decide how to use it. The other branch saw it as morally corrupt with no chance for salvation. One prominent member of the other branch was Mahatma Gandhi. But even he used a train during his political career, although his own legs remained Gandhiji's favorite mode of transportation. The public image of railways wasn't improved during the next chapter of Indian history. The partition saw creation of independent Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India. And during this time, millions of people crossed the newly established borders in inhuman conditions under a constant fear of violence on overcrowded trains, which sort of became symbol of this suffering. In spite of all the tragedies the railways were involved in, the leaders of independent India fully embraced them and saw their huge potential in connecting the disconnected new nation and kickstarting development. Were they right? Well, basically yes. The railways became a symbol of modernity and railway hubs became thriving cities. The railways were instrumental in granting freedom of movement in post-independence India, an unavoidable condition for development. And as a secular shared space, it brought together people from various walks of life. There weren't many opportunities to meet people of different backgrounds in everyday life. But on a train or around a station, people of different castes, religions, and occupations mingled freely. Traveling on a train often meant that people who would otherwise never interact with each other had to share the same space for a lengthy amount of time, bringing them closer together. Although there is social stratification even on board of a train, as richer people can afford more expensive tickets to higher classes, while those with less resources rely on heavily subsidized general or sleeper class. Sometimes the passengers take the struggle for equality into their own hands, and on certain trains it is not uncommon for passengers with general class tickets to use empty spaces in higher classes. There's undeniably a huge benefit in the affirmation freedom of movement that the railway offers to anyone. People from every village can travel to cities for education or work, especially thanks to the very low fares. But the opportunity is not always there, and lack of opportunities usually materializes as slums that are mostly built right next to the railway tracks. Economic development is certainly closely tied to the railways, as goods and products could easily reach new domestic and international markets, and since we are now talking about independent India, the profits stayed in the country. The railways have also great significance for the industry, as India is proudly manufacturing vast majority of its train in domestic factories. A recent notable example would be Train 18 or the Vande Bharat Express, the first semi-high-speed electric multiple unit produced in India. The Indian Railways are an invaluable service which distinguish them from a for-profit corporation. Train fare in India is one of the lowest in the world. The lower class tickets are heavily subsidized and not even the more luxurious classes are able to make up for the loss. In reality, only one class, AC 3 tier, is bringing in long-term profits, with AC chair class recently emerging from the red numbers as well. This may seem like a bad business practice, but that's the difference between a service and a corporation. And the real pricelessness of the railways became apparent during the COVID-19 lockdown, when many workers became stranded as the mode of transportation they relied upon suddenly stopped.
So trains in India are marvelous, but they're also unsafe, kinda slow and not in a very good shape.
The rolling stock is old and there's still a terrifying lack of safety features, both on board and around the tracks. The safety did improve massively in the past decades, while the number of accidents is constantly falling. But important safety measures, like emergency exits or locking systems that would keep the door closed while the train is moving, are still very much lacking. This allows for a particularly dangerous activity of embarking and disembarking pretty much whenever you feel like it. It's against the rules, of course, but there's usually no one to enforce it. And how is safety managed during the night? You simply send in a security officer with an automatic rifle to patrol the tight compartments. Hard to imagine what would happen if they actually fired. Now, in order to increase speed, the Indian government is constantly investing into upgrades on the network. But with an average speed of about 50 km per hour, the trains are still pretty slow, albeit otherwise reliable. I mean, delays are not uncommon, but so is arriving on time. Plus, amassing an hour-long delay on a 50-hour journey across the whole country is an impressive feat nonetheless. The most notable project to increase speed, at least on one relatively short-distance corridor, is the Indian bullet train. The standard-gauge Japanese Shinkansen E5 series train, with an operating speed of 320 km per hour, should depart on its maiden voyage between Mumbai and Ahmedabad at the end of 2023.
And now I'm going to insert my own personal opinion here. I'm not a big fan of this project. I understand that it is a source of great, well-deserved national pride, but it seems rushed and a bit unnecessary.
The proposed line would irrevocably damage environmentally viable protected areas, including Sanjay Gandhi National Park and Thane Creek Flamingo Sanctuary, not to mention the number of houses, temples, mosques, churches, farmland and orchards that would have to be destroyed. And all that for a train that will not offer faster nor cheaper alternative to flying. And while I'm all for substituting local flights with trains for environmental reasons, it cannot be for a price of immense environmental destruction. Using the resources designated for the bullet train on upgrading the existing network, especially in regard to safety, and investing into broad-gauge semi-high-speed train like the Train 18 would be, in my opinion, wiser.
The Indian Railways are a great institution, with many reasons for admiration and many issues as well. I would definitely recommend anyone traveling to India to complete at least one overnight journey on a sleeper class car.
For many foreigners, it will be the most culturally immersing experience of their visit. And while I admittedly, in my young stupidity, like how I can do things on board of a train that are absolutely unthinkable in Europe, have my little adventure and earn bragging rights on Instagram, I actually hope that traveling by train in India will eventually become more boring, more safe. But it's hard to predict what the future holds. There are also plans to open the network for private companies in the coming years, which might change everything for the better, or maybe it will not. I'm not the one who can answer these questions, but I'll keep my eye on this subject, and even though I don't know when I'm going back to India, I'm already looking forward for my next adventure on board of a train.
Thank you for sticking with my rambling until the very end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you should definitely subscribe, and see you in the next one. It will either be about Indian geography or a nuclear war. I haven't decided yet. No. See ya!